Style for Life. I'm Stephanie Rumble, fashion stylist, accountability coach, and your guide to feeling good in your body and your clothes. Based in Christchurch, New Zealand, I bring over 3 decades of experience in fashion, fitness, and wellness to help you feel strong, stylish, and self-assured. Together we'll explore the emotional, physical, and practical sides of style, because true confidence starts from within. No matter your age or size, you deserve to feel confident and show up as the best version of you. I truly believe this. This is Style for Life. Hi everyone, good morning. This podcast is called The 8 Things I Wish I'd Done in My 20s and the 8 Things I'm So Glad I Did Do. And this podcast came about because 2 weeks ago I was delivering a seminar on assertiveness and personal impact to a group of beautiful young graduates. They were great graduates who were all aged between 20 and I think about 23, 24, and they were in their first job. Some of them had only been in the job for around 5 or 6 months, and we got talking after the presentation about a whole lot of things, and we talked about the podcast, and one of them said, "Oh, can you please do a podcast on the things you wish you'd done in your 20s? So here we are today, and this has been so interesting. So thank you very much. A lovely girl called Catherine, you'll know who you are if you're listening, who suggested this to me. And as it turned out, I found out that I went to school with Catherine's mother, which was really exciting. Anyway, thank you very much for that suggestion. It's made me think really hard this week about the things that I really wish I had done in my 20s and the things that I'm really glad I did do. So yeah, I had my 20s were a very busy time in my life. So I left home and I went to university at Otago in Dunedin, New Zealand. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's in the far south of New Zealand, quite a cold place with a real Scottish influence. And I spent 5 years studying, which was a long time. I did an undergraduate degree and then a master's degree, and then I moved. So I was only 23 when I graduated, and then I also got married at 23, which is quite young. For even us in those days, it was quite young. David and I wanted to get married, and I moved to Wellington and lived there for a couple of years, and then we saved up to do our OE and we went overseas to the UK, and we worked overseas for a year. And in that time I got pregnant, which I hadn't planned on doing. It was definitely a life plan for a long way off. So by that stage I was 25. I was planning on getting pregnant when I was 30 plus. I was having a career and traveling and having a life first. But anyway, we made a decision to come back to New Zealand because we didn't want to have our child there. We just didn't feel well enough set up. We'd only just sort of got on our feet. We'd only been there for about 6 or 7 months when this happened. So again, life sends you curveballs. So we travelled a little bit, then came back to New Zealand. And when we got back to New Zealand, we actually lost that baby. It's very sad, actually. And so then I was very destitute, desolate. David had settled himself into a really good job at a dental practice. He'd bought into a dental practice. I was just so unhappy. Most of my friends had gone back to London or just were leaving for London or leaving to travel overseas, and here I was back in Christchurch, sort of in this life without any child. I didn't really have a job. I hadn't really figured out what I was going to do, so I had to get back on my feet. And at that point I went and worked at Les Mills as a personal trainer. There was a whole lot of stuff that happened. So in that time, then from the age of around, I think I was around 26, I got pregnant again, and then obviously we had children, and we've had lots of children. And we did quite a few things in that time. So we bought a couple of houses and sold them. We built a house, we renovated a house. So there's a lot that happened before I was 30. A very busy time. But what do I wish I'd done in my 20s, and what am I glad I did do? So I suppose this was so interesting, and I did a couple of things. I remember when I'd had Zach, so by the time I gave birth to Zach I was 27, because I got pregnant when I was 26, and then obviously I had a birthday when I was pregnant. He was born in the year 2000, and it was such an interesting year. I remember in 2000 we went tramping when I was 6 months pregnant I think it was January, February time. And I remember it was actually over the turn of the century, the millennium. So we turned into 2000 while we were tramping. And I stayed awake. And I remember distinctly being awake in this hut and thinking, oh, it's just midnight and it's the year 2000 and I'm pregnant and now I'm tired, I'm just going to go back to sleep. Nothing happened. So funny what we remember. So I just remember that time it was a very big time in my life because obviously 27 years old and the millennium happened. So that was really interesting and very significant at that time. And then Zach was born in April of that year. So he's 25 now. So very easy to remember his birthday because he was born in 2000. So very special for those of us who gave birth then. Yeah, I remember soon after I'd given birth to him, I was living in Redcliffs and I had a knock on the door. I was quite bored. I found I had a baby and after I got him settled down, which took a while, he was a reasonably good baby. I had a knock on the door. It was this guy selling insurance. I can't remember his name. Anyway, I was so bored I invited him in. Anyway, long story short, he sold me a retirement plan fund thing, which was actually quite good. I just contributed a very small amount from then onwards. I was 27 and it's ended up growing a little bit since then. It's not hugely significant, but it was a start. So the first thing I wish I'd done in my 20s, and I didn't know what I know now, I wish I'd invested a little bit of money every week in a managed fund. Now, this just wasn't something that we talked about a lot in our family. It wasn't something my husband's family had talked a lot about. I don't even know if a managed fund was accessible to us at that time. I think it was probably you needed $20,000. And I mean, if we would have been able to put 1,000 or 2,000 at the time. So you couldn't even start that. It wasn't as accessible and possible, but I wish I'd known a bit more about this and had a bit more advice and had started investing. So, I've recommended to my children that even if it's a small amount, just $1,000 or $2,000, a managed fund every week and continue to invest in it. So even if it's 50, 20, 100, whatever you can afford each week in your 20s. Honestly, if you listen to the podcast, Girls That Invest, these ladies are amazing. They have some great stories. They're two New Zealand ladies who have put this podcast out. But I went back to the start and listened to these podcasts and I became enlightened. And it's taken me 50 years to get here. Be astute, understand what your money can do for you. Very small amounts of money every week, consistently into a managed fund, grow exponentially. I was speaking to a young person last night who's been doing this, and she said she feels astonished at how hers has grown when she's still a student. I'm not an investment specialist. It's definitely not my area of speciality, but I have a little bit of knowledge which I've passed on to my children. 50% of them have listened. So a couple of them will be looking after me in my old age, maybe. So that's my first thing I wish I'd done in my 20s. And again, get skilled up. Listen to podcasts, attend seminars, talk about it. Talk about it. We didn't talk about the stuff. It was only the finance bros that talked about it. They probably invested then, probably sitting back at my age, completely relaxing and not doing anything because they got all sorted in their 20s. I didn't. As you could hear, we were quite busy traveling and having babies. What else do I really wish I'd done in my 20s? This is a little less serious, but I really wish I'd not dyed my hair so much, right? I had really good hair. I still have good hair, right? But I had a great hair colour. I've got no idea really what it looked like in my 20s. I think it was probably like a reddy, mousy, brown, blonde colour. But it was always dyed, and it was always dyed blonde. It was the whole Rachel Hunter effect. We had the same hair. She's a little few years older than me. So I just dyed it blonde. I said the blonde, fried blonde hair for all of my 20s. I really didn't see the light until I started styling about the other possibilities and options for me. So yeah, I really wish I hadn't dyed it. Or I wish I'd had a few more wild hair dyes and done something a bit more interesting other than boring old blonde, which for me felt boring. I know it's not for everybody, but that was just what I did because that's all I knew. Wasn't worldly enough to experiment a bit more with some of the options. So I either wish I'd stayed natural or been a bit more creative and been a bit more investigated a wee bit more curious. I wish too that I'd forgotten about how fat, thin, big, large, small my body was. Honestly, so much of my headspace in my 20s was all about my body. And honestly, it was such a waste of brain. I really encourage you to find a way through this if this is for you. It took me years. I mean, it really was my late 30s before I really nailed this. So I came from I had some disordered eating patterns in my my late teens, got on top of those, but still just honestly, there was so much in my head about how big, how small, how little, all of that was just going on all the time. For me, it was generally about my thighs. Oh my gosh, and my thighs are great, like they're muscly, and I feel so happy with my body now. I just really want you to have this happiness from your 20s, and it will take something if you're not happy. So if you're not happy, it will take something. It might take you getting some help, some therapy. It might take you actually committing to your fitness and health. It might take you doing less of that stuff and taking more time to nurture and care for your body. Wherever you're at in that journey, I just wish I hadn't thought so much about that stuff. I'd been more happy with just who I am and what I have. And I realized that everybody's beautiful. Every single person has a great body. There's no such thing as an ideal body. And I was raised and had my formative years in the heroin chic. Oh my gosh, can you even imagine what that was about? This was like in the 90s, catwalk models who looked like they were on heroin, they're so skinny. I mean, what even did we even call that? Like, we wouldn't do that nowadays. It would be so unbelievably inappropriate. But that's what we called it. So, yeah, I don't know what that was about, but anyway, that had an influence. And we didn't have social media, but all the magazines and TV and all the things we saw, the print media, was very much in this vein. So yeah, I think we just thought that was the ideal body, which is extremely wrong. Oh, there we go, that's number 3. So what else do I wish I'd done in my 20s? I wish I had travelled to at least 20 different countries. Like, obviously I explained my life story to you. I got pregnant. We'd only been overseas for about 6 or 7 months, and we were both quite gutted and shell-shocked, but we were together, so we wanted to have children. It just wasn't really in our plan to have them at 25 and 27, which would have happened had we not lost that baby. So I think, I don't know, how do you change that? That's what happened to us. Maybe use better birth control. Maybe things are better nowadays than they were 25 years ago. But I think your 20s are your time. They're your time to get out there, to backpack, to join a Contiki if you're not into going overseas for a long period of time and actually just being over there and living there, which some people don't want to do. Do a Contiki or do something that you can actually see countries. You've got that life experience. You've been there. You've seen it. Even my parents, who my father's now passed, but my mother, who's 79, nearly 80, they travelled in their 20s. I saw photos when I was preparing for my father's funeral. I went through all of their photos, and there's these amazing photos of him camping in Greece and places like that. He led a Contiki tour. So I just think, get out there, go to places like, I don't know, Algeria, places like Eastern Europe, Russia, South America, places that are harder to go with a family. You might be less inclined to go when you get older because you like comforts of life. Although we're about to travel again soon, and we definitely are on quite a strict budget. It won't be luxury hotels all the way, definitely not. Not even very many of them at all, maybe 1 or 2, depending on where we're going. So I think, do that backpacking, do that hard yards, go with your friends. You're much more resilient when you're in your 20s, sleeping in weird places, getting up and getting going again. Like, it's harder as you get older. It's really hard with children, and as you head into later life, things can happen to you health wise, or you can just have less resilience or a little bit less tolerance to time zone changes. That's really tricky. In your 20s you need to travel, and I said to at least 20 different countries. I'd say by the time you're 30, goal for 20 countries. There's 193 countries in the world, by the way. So you're still not very close. You're only like, I don't know, what was that, 10% of the way there? But it's a start, right? So that's a start. 20 different countries in your 20s, maybe more, maybe 30 or 40 if you can do it. I'm not just talking about a whistle-stop tour through, tick box. I'm talking about having some time there. If you're based in somewhere in Europe or in the UK, you can actually save your money or your euro or your pound or wherever you base yourself, and then you can travel without it costing like arm and a leg, because on the New Zealand dollar, we're traveling from here in New Zealand, it's really expensive, and our flights are like 2 huge big legs to get ourselves into the Europe part of the world. Obviously the Americas are a little closer, and Asia's closer too. Go to some of the countries in Asia. We travelled in Vietnam when we were in our 20s on our way to the UK. We spent 5 weeks cycling from the north to the south. We take our bikes, and honestly, I got the idea because I was on an aeroplane traveling in New Zealand, and I read a magazine. We used to get magazines on airplanes, don't get those anymore. And they handed out an adventure magazine, and inside the magazine there was a 2-page article about 2 men who had cycled from the north to the south of Vietnam. And I was like, Dave, let's do this. I took the magazine home, or I bought the magazine, and we just took those magazine articles. We landed right up the top in Hanoi with our bikes, and our bike, we'd never even really done any cycle touring. We'd cycled a bit in New Zealand, and we just did it. It was so good. It was so good. It was really hard, but it was really good. So that was a really fun thing to do, and our bodies coped with it. It was so hard at times. So sometimes we did 100 kilometres, and it was so hot, and we got a bit sunburned, and we had a few arguments. But we got there, and it really brought us closer together too. We had to really work together. So I wish I'd travelled to at least 20 different countries by the time I was 30. I wish I'd trusted my body implicitly, like really trusted my body to do what it could do, to restore itself to the way it needed to. Like, I think we don't trust ourselves enough. We don't trust our body. We don't push it as much as we can. Like, I did run my first half marathon after I'd had Bryn. So I had Bryn in 2001, so I was 28 when I had him. So I wasn't quite 30, but it took me till I was nearly 30 to run my first half marathon. Not that I'm suggesting you should try that, but do these things in your 20s when your body's still really resilient, your recovery's really good. Try it out, see how it feels. Yeah, and if you don't do it in your 20s and you're listening to me and you haven't done this and you're in your 50s or 60s or 40s or 30s or however old you are, then just give it a try now. You never know what might happen. So I wish I'd trusted my body implicitly and actually believed in it more. Like, I think it bore me children, I bounced back, I was able to do things, and I wish I'd understood my body more. I understand it so much more now. So listened to it, took notice of it, knew what signs it was giving me. So if I do have a niggle, not pushing through it, or if things are a bit difficult, actually knowing that I can step up and get through it. Oh, this next one is really controversial. Okay, so I didn't really experiment a lot with drugs when I was in my 20s. I have no inclination to do it now in my 50s. Absolutely none. And all of my time in my 30s and 40s, I was raising kids, so it just didn't feel right. So my jury's out as to whether I think it's a great idea going forward. Just think that in my 20s, I would have been more resilient around it, and it may have been okay for me to try. Didn't, though. Do I wish I had? Maybe in my 20s, but that's only for me, so please, I don't advocate that for anyone. Number 7, oh, that's really controversial, sorry team. Number 7 is I wish I'd trusted my instincts more. So, I've got really good instincts. My instincts now lead me quite heavily in my life. I just listen to my instincts, and I know this sounds woo-woo for some of you, but very much so my instincts are usually right. So if I listen to them, I get where I need to go. Sometimes I'll deviate a wee bit and I'll be like, I wish I'd listened to that. I wish I'd stepped into that. So, I don't know, I think sometimes my instincts came up and I would then ask for advice and somebody else would give me advice and I wouldn't necessarily take it. So, I would take it and then I'd be annoyed that I hadn't listened to my instincts. Potentially just about being very sensible. Being very sensible. I was quite sensible in my 20s. I mean, I did have 2 children by the time I was 30 and I was pregnant with my 3rd at 30. So just trust my instincts more. And I did have fun. Believe me, we had fun. I had a 30th birthday party. It was really fun. I invited all these people. I had it at Sign of the Takahe. I actually had my 50th birthday there too. Oh, it was a bit of a blast from the past. I really wanted to go back to the same place I'd had my 30th. Just kind of ironic. My 40th was at home. So I don't know. I wish I trusted my instincts more, and I do this so much more now. So I think you question yourself when you're younger. You don't believe that you are mature enough to make these decisions, and you think, you know what, I maybe I'll listen to so-and-so or such and such because they're older, wiser, a whole lot more knowledgeable. So yeah, trusting my instincts more is something I wish I'd done. Oh no, number 8. I know, this is only 8. If you want more, I have to dream some more up or think some more up. This is one I have done and I'm really good at now. I wish I'd worn sunscreen every time. Like, I've got relatively olive skin for a Caucasian person, but you know, age is what it is. And I don't have any, I very luckily, touch wood, haven't had any skin cancers, but I was of the age where we went out, we lay on the tin roof as teenagers with the high reflection, and we got sunburned. Oh my gosh, I cringe to think of it now. Like literally, we almost made ourselves. And I did use sunbeds. Oh my gosh, I used a sunbed. Oh my gosh, this was my last few years at school, and I actually responded. My skin darkened in a sunbed. Oh, it's just so bad for you. I now would never go near a sunbed. Not my thing. If it is your jam, I'm sorry, no judgment here. But for me, it's just not something I want to do to myself. I'm totally on this mission to be the best, most healthy, happiest version of myself. Oh yeah, all of my life. And that includes my health. And my skin has aged. I've got sunspots on my shoulders. I've done lots of running. I try and wear a t-shirt in the summer, even though I feel really hot. Sometimes I give in and wear a singlet, but I've got sunspots here. I've got some sun damage down the sides of my neck, which is really frustrating. Obviously, I'm the age I am, I have some wrinkles, which is not unexpected. But, you know, like, I wish I'd worn sunscreen every time. So now, my family laughs at me now. So I don't cover up as much in the sun, like wearing long sleeves all the time. Like I would, if I'm hot, I'll wear a singlet. But I get up in the morning in the summer, and in Christchurch, that's about for 1 month. Unless I'm somewhere hot. But when I'm overseas and anywhere where it's hot, I get up in the morning. My routine is, right, I get up, I exercise, I get it done. Because if I'm in a hot country and I'm about to go to like really hot countries for the next few weeks, in a couple of weeks' time, you'll hear about them. I'm going to do some podcasts while I'm away. And honestly, it's going to be so hot. So I get up, exercise before it gets too hot, sometimes really early in the morning. Usually it's a run. If I can't run, it's not safe, I'll do something inside the hotel room or the foyer of the hotel or somewhere I can find a spot. So I always get my dopamine hit first thing in the morning. And then after my shower, I don't put moisturizer on. I cover my body head to toe in sunscreen and double layer my face. So my face would have a sunscreen with moisturizer with sunscreen, and then I would probably put like a CC cream on, which is just like a very, very light foundation tinted moisturizer on top of the sunscreen. So my face gets heaps of, and my neck and here around my chest décolleté area, that gets lots of sunscreen too. That's my best advice, be sunscreen. So my 8 things I wish I'd done in my 20s are: not dyed my hair at all so I could see it for a while, or be more wild and adventurous rather than, for me, blonde. Invested a little bit more money in a managed fund every week. I suggest you listen to Girls That Invest, the podcast. Put a link in the show notes. Forgotten about how fat, thin, big, small my thighs were, my body was. Just let go of that. Number 4 is trusted my body implicitly. So trusted my body to do what it could do, like give birth, come back to normal, breastfeed, all of those things. Everything, I tried to force things, and I wish I'd just trusted. Number 5 is travel to at least 20 different countries, if not 30. Working on that now. Number 6 is tried more drugs. Controversial, yeah. Number 7, trusted my instincts more. And number 8 is always worn sunscreen every time. So, what am I glad I did do in my 20s? I am so glad for me, and this is not for everybody, I am so glad I got an education. My education has set me up for my entire life. Now, again, not for everybody. Not everybody is academic. Not everybody wants to do this. But my sincere advice to you is find a trajectory that you can follow through your life that is going to allow you to progress, because you'll be so much more physically and mentally well as a result. So that's one thing I'm really, really glad I did. My father was amazing. When I was in my late teens, he drove me to Dunedin, introduced me to the dean of the clothing and textiles department at Otago University, because I was really into sewing. He thought I needed to do a degree. He didn't have a degree. He had a couple of diplomas from Lincoln, which is pretty good. And he really wanted me and all of us to have a degree. And we're all very highly educated. In fact, all 3 of us have got master's degrees. Yeah, so I ended up getting a master's degree, an undergraduate degree in clothing, and then a master's degree in clothing as well, with a specialty in chemical protective clothing, which led me into that whole area, that health, wellness, and lots of other things since. So since then, even in my 20s again, I went back to university and studied again and did a postgraduate certificate in occupational health, specialising in health and safety. I've done lots of things. I won't bore you with all the academic credentials, but I've done a lot of things and I continue to, and I'm so excited to next semester be studying nutrition. So I actually am going back to do that. I have studied nutrition and under personal training qualifications. I want to do it in a different way through Otago again, just because that's where I sit and feel the best. So anyway, I'm really, really, really glad I got an education. For me, that's worked. And education is a life commitment. I'm really glad that I had 2 of my 4 babies. Now, this is a really tough one because it wasn't my life plan, but it obviously was the plan for me because that's what I ended up doing. So I had 2 of our 4 children, and then I got pregnant when I was 30 with Scarlett. And I think I can never remember when I gave birth to her. I think I might have been 31, and I gave birth to Poppy at 32. They're both close in age, something like that, 30 or 31. But anyway, I was pregnant with my 3rd when I was 30. So very happy that I did that, because it's meant now my children are all grown up. Now there's some sadness that you've heard me talk about, not having them all around me, but David and I are energetic and young enough to do quite a bit of the things that we wish we'd done in our 20s, probably not the drugs, and actually, have a go at some of those things now. I am really glad that we bought and sold 2 houses. Did we do 2? 2 houses, maybe nearly 3. 2 houses at that time, and so we did our very first house when we first left university. We'd been working for a year. We saved up a deposit, and it's quite easy because we didn't really experience that lifestyle creep that you often get when you finish being a student and start being a working person. We just kind of kept living as students, and we just were so in the mode. And anyway, we bought our first house, and it was quite tricky because it ended up we had sold it to go overseas because we weren't quite in it long enough to make money. But anyway, that was a good exercise, and then we came back to New Zealand and bought another house. Well, we built a house actually, and then we renovated that house once we'd built it a year later because it was too small for 3 children. So yeah, that was really, really good because it got us on the property market and on the property ladder. So I really would say, if you can help your kids, if you're someone who's young, and you can do this. I know it sounds like a heavy load, but for us that worked. It's harder nowadays. Your deposit's heavier. It's a lot more money, and it is tougher. But I've suggested even to my own kids and to their friends, do it with a friend. Get into a property with a friend so you can actually share the load, then get flatmates. There's ways to do it. What did we do? We travelled with our children. So obviously we didn't travel to 20 different intrepid countries, but we made a commitment to each other because our children came earlier than we wanted them to, that we were going to travel with them. So we went overseas, and it was really not far. We had 4 or 5 trips to the Gold Coast. The first one was when I was pregnant with Poppy, and so the younger 3 children were all under 5 because we had 4 children under 5. So they were all a lot younger, and we travelled with all of them, and that was good. It was really good. So we went to places like Australia. We went to, I think we got to Samoa. Once we went to Fiji. We took them all to Thailand once. So we went to places that were more affordable, only one flight that wasn't too long. And that's what we wanted. We also travelled lots around New Zealand. We travelled to lots of places. We took them away and did things with them because for us that was a time to bond and get together as a family. As a result, they all really liked travelling. Surprise, surprise. I'm really happy that I invested always in consistent skincare. Now, I've used the word consistent here because it wasn't expensive. It was not expensive skincare. It was consistent. So even now, I just use Antipodes skincare, which I really love, and it's very mid-price point, and it does good things for my skin. My skin looks good, and I feel really happy with it. And so I think I'm very happy I did that. And that came about because when I was at school, someone came and spoke to us about skincare. And I just took that on board. It wasn't something my mum was really into, but she was pretty good. She used moisturiser and sunscreen, but that was about it. In line with that, I'm also really glad that I learned how to apply makeup. I had to teach myself because that was not something my mum was interested in. So I taught myself, and I'm really happy and glad I learned to apply and use it too. Number 6, I'm really happy I committed to my health and well-being, particularly my fitness, and I really did do that. So it set me up so well for my whole life. So really and truly, if you're not there yet and you're in your 20s, it's time, right? It doesn't matter how you do it. Find something you like doing. Like my kids all do different things. I've got one kid who's obviously a professional athlete. He's currently rowing overseas for New Zealand. And I've got another one who loves going to the gym. He goes to the gym, does weights, but he also plays touch rugby with his mates. He plays basketball. He plays golf. So he finds joy in sport. My other daughter, not so into that heavy intensity stuff. She goes to the gym and does yoga and body balance. Supreme good effort for her. My other daughter goes out and goes to the gym. It's just what works for you. like walking, do something that makes your body work. I'm so glad I did that. It was one of the best things I've done. It's made me so much more energetic and able to manage into my later life. I'm really glad I maintained friendships. I've got friends that I had when I was at school and friends I had at university. I like to have like probably total of about 7 or 8 really close, good friends, and there's lots of wider friends as well. But maintaining those close friendships has been really key to my mental health. And you know what I did stop doing a bit in my 20s? I stopped GAF. Do you know what that means? Giving up. I'm not going to swear. So I stopped giving so much. Now, that's not about not taking care of other people's health and well-being and feelings and making sure I was responsible in my communication. It's more about, I wanted to be me. I wanted to be self-expressed and be the person I was. And I really did take that on. And I really evolved the most into this in my 30s. But I stopped giving as much of a about what other people thought about how I showed up in the world, particularly around my personal appearance, around my fitness, around my health, around my alcohol consumption, around all of those things. So that started in my 20s. Hey, look, that's us. Just like that, the podcast has come to an end. So I hope that's useful. Just to quickly recap, the things that I am glad I did in my 20s. Got an education, had 2 of our 4 babies, bought and sold a couple of houses, travelled with our family, invested in consistent skincare, committed to my health, well-being and fitness, maintained friendships and stopped worrying so much about what other people thought. And that sort of ties into the first one where I wish I'd trust my instincts more. So I started to do that in my late 20s. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. And I really look forward to coming back again next week and sharing more words of interest with you. I was going to say wisdom, but not necessarily. And feel free to drop me a line or to comment if there's anything you'd like me to talk about. Ki kaha. Thank you for listening to the Style for Life podcast. Don't forget, you deserve to feel fabulous at every age, every stage, and at every size. If you're loving the show, hit subscribe and leave a review. It helps more amazing people like you find their way back to life through style. Thanks again. Until next time.